joining. So I am starting on his behalf. Good afternoon to all the participants and the eminent panel members of today's program, Management Development Program on Post-COVID-19 Supply Chain Collapse, Challenges and Solutions. We have amongst us Professor Bijan Sarkar, the Professor Jadavpur University and the convener of PI Division, IEI, WBSC. We have with us Professor P.K. Roy, who is the Professor Pradeep Kumar Roy, who is the Dean of VGSOM and Professor IAC Department, IIT Kharagpur, and the Chairman of PI Division, IEI, WBSC. We have with us Professor S.N. Roy, who is the former Director of Indian Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management, IISWBM in short. We have with us Sri Kalipada Das, Honorary Secretary, WBSC, IEI. We have with us Professor Kinshuk Sen, who is the Additional Director Technical of State Headquarters. I welcome all of you, and this particular program is the second program in succession. The first one from the Production Engineering Department we did some time back, that was on Total Quality Management. And this particular program is on impact of COVID-19 on supply chain management. I once again welcome all of you and the eminent panel members, Mr. Kalipada Das, Honorary Secretary, Kinshuk Sen, and all others. And I shall now request Professor Bijan Sarkar, Professor Jadavpur University, Kolkata, and convener PI Division, IEI, WBSC, to kindly talk about the theme of this webinar and also introduce the speakers. Over to you, Professor Bijan Sarkar.
The volume.
Please unmute yourself.
I think Professor Sarkar is muted.
Unmute.
Professor Sarkar, you are not audible. You please unmute yourself. Go to the right-hand side of the of your screen. Just beside there are written webcam, audio, attendees, all this, and there is a button which is red mark. Probably that is the audio button. You have to make it green by pressing it.
You cannot.
Okay, now it is audible.
You cannot. Right. Now it is audible.
Yes, sir, it is audible now. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Very good afternoon to all the participants to this one-day management development program on post-COVID-19 supply chain collapses, challenges and solutions. Really, I am thankful to Professor Gautam Sengupta, Professor Shoma S.N. Roy, Professor P.K. Roy, Mr. Kalipada Das, and Professor Kinshuk Sen of Institute of Engineers for giving me this opportunity to introduce about the theme of the subject matter as well as the speakers, eminent speakers of these occasions. Now, supply chain management is a great concept, great word, in the context of the post-COVID-19. Everybody wants to have the right thing at the right time, at the right place, at a minimal cost. So thing is that how to deliver the item, the required item, the desired item to the customer at the right time, at the right quality, at a reasonable price under this pandemic situation. Now the topic has been selected is appropriate in the context of the modern times and the challenges and the solutions. Only thing that I would like to share with you, when this supply chain management when we talk about, we must consider into the industry 4.0 because CODP, customer order decoupling point, which is much greater than 1 in the case of the MTS make to stock, but which is much less in the case of the ETO, engineer to order. Here lies the challenges for the production engineers because we must deliver the product, the desired product, the customer's product. Now there's a paradigm shift from the mass production to the mass customization. The required item must be delivered, handed over to the customer at the right time, at the right quality, at a reasonable price. Question comes, how to handle that thing. Now the modern concept, in the case of the manufacturing system, there's a sea change in the manufacturing system. We are talking about the Industry 4.0. We are talking about the digital manufacturing system. We are talking about the fractal manufacturing system. We are talking about the holonic manufacturing system. We are talking about the fractal, holonic, and the bionic manufacturing system. Under this situation, how to tackle, how to procure the elements, the required items, required machineries, required layout, so that it can be processed, it can be delivered at the right time to the customer at a reasonable price. So the theme is very much appropriate in the context of the modern problem, that COVID-19. So this is about the theme of the project, which is being discussed by the eminent speakers. I would like to introduce the the eminent speakers for today's discussion. Professor P.K. Roy. Professor P.K. Roy is a great name in the field of industrial engineering and production engineering in India and abroad. But still, it is a customary to introduce the speakers. Professor P.K. Roy is a professor and the former head of the Department of Industrial Engineering, Industrial and Systems Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. Currently, he is the director of the Virab Gupta School of Management, IIT Kharagpur. And it will take minimum 10 to 12 minutes to read out his whole CV. Very difficult. It's a wonderful curriculum vitae for Professor Roy. But I would like to tell very few about his achievements, outstanding achievements in the field of the industrial engineering and production engineering. He has guided many PhD students. He got many awards, and among the most important awards, the P.C. Mohalanavis Award, awarded by Operational Research Society of India last year. He had visited almost all the continents of the world, and currently he is looking after as the directorship of the Virab Gupta School of Management. Now coming to Professor S.N. Roy. S.N. Roy is a great name in the academic area of industrial production management and the operations management. He had a vast experience both in the industry and the teaching over the 45 years, both in India and abroad. He is a very reputed engineer and teacher both in India and also in the international level. He is the professor and the former director of Indian Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management, IISWBM, Kolkata. He held many prestigious posts in different Indian organizations and abroad. Thank you, Professor Roy, for joining us. Now coming to Professor Gautam Sengupta. Professor Gautam Sengupta, also an alumnus of Jadavpur University. He did his MBA from XLRI Jamshedpur and got his PhD degree from IIEST. He was associated with all the leading industry in India, to name a few: Philips India, Tata Motors, Videocon as his vice president, and Westinghouse Pharma as his director and the chairman, to name a few. He held many high positions in different organizations, both in India and abroad. Currently, he is the vice chancellor of Techno India University and guiding many PhD scholars in this field. Thank you very much. Now, this is handed over to Professor Gautam Sengupta for continuation of the project seminar.
Thank you, Professor Bijan Sarkar, for a wonderful introduction of the topic and as well as the speakers. Now, we would start our technical session. Our technical session 1 will be addressed by Professor Pradeep Kumar Roy, Dean Bhijisham and Professor ISC Department, IIT Kharagpur, and the Chairman of PI Division of IEI WBSC. So he shall be speaking on the subject of importance of supply chain management. So over to Professor Pradeep Kumar Roy.
Very good afternoon to all of you. And I'm honored to be invited as one of the speakers for this important webinar being conducted by Institute of Engineers, Production Engineering Division of West Bengal State Center. As you are aware that, the supply chain management remains an important aspect all through these years. In fact, for the last 100 years or so, we'll find, knowingly or unknowingly, the supply chain management is actually influencing the performance of any organization. Now, this is a very vast subject, and there are many issues involved. So the topic of discussion is importance of supply chain management. You are all aware of, in fact, why it is important. And if you name any company, now against a particular company, the corresponding the type of supply chain it is, it belongs to, that is also known. So the background, the today's context, the background is, the COVID-19 pandemic. That is the main issue. And as you may be knowing that maybe someone might say that it is the worst of times, but simultaneously, it also we can say it is the worst of time. What, the many years back, the Charles Dickens, in The Tale of Two Cities, the first two sentences, he writes, it was the best of time, it was the worst of time. So that is, the context is different, but maybe the human civilization is again facing a situation, and it may be referred to as the worst of times, but simultaneously you will find that the best of times and the worst of times, these two go hand in hand. Okay, so now I will be getting around 15 to 20 minutes of time for making my presentation. So these are the important issues. Let me tell you. One is the background. We all know that why we are concerned about the supply chain management. Then what are the main issues, the concepts and issues in supply chain management, problems in the design, all these details, design of the supply chain network related to a particular product, related to a particular process, related to a particular company, related to a particular plant, related to a set of, the raw materials. All details are to be known. Now, I will just a few minutes of time I'll give. This is the situation. The main situation is, hello, it's going so fast. Why? The main situation is, okay, the main situation is many, just a few months ago, many companies, they used to face a situation called the problem under certainty or the problem under risk. And what has happened, actually, this problem has now become, for many, many companies, problem under uncertainty. Now, as you might be knowing, when we try to formulate this problem, we refer to Carl Pearson systems of equation. Now, those are done many years back. Today, in a given context, maybe you have to rewrite the Pearson systems of equation. Okay, so otherwise, the modeling becomes difficult, and you may feel that yes, the supply chain management is perfect, but as the new situation arrives, you may find that you act like a, you become totally helpless. So the problems have moved from certainty to risk to uncertainty. And the questions: do you know in which state we are now? Many companies they are not aware of. In fact, do you know the path from the worst to present before COVID-19 crisis to improvement? Okay, so this is go next. It's not working. Yeah. Now, in this context, a radical transformation in handling supply chain related activities must be followed. This is point number one. During this pandemic, the amount of activities and resources to be coordinated and mobilized can feel overwhelming to the organizations. So as the pandemic continues to expand, businesses The second one is the planning and maintaining achievable plans and targets. Okay, so these are the two main issues. And as you may be knowing that the concepts are known to you, in fact, that the concepts of logistic and supply chain management is introduced to address the problem of integration of organizational functions. These are all well known to you. Only thing I'll just highlight, even in 60s, we never used to call supply chain management, but we used to say that there is, the logistics. And on the logistics, what do you find? There are a lot many applications of operation research models. And here is one area where, we find not many applications of operation research. Today, what you need to do, basically, the problem has become so complex. Now, again, you have to bring in those analytical approach and find out those operation research based tools and techniques are basically those tools and many of these tools and techniques originated at the shop floor level. That means by the companies. So all these functions are to be integrated and should be done. And these integrations should be done in such a way that it results in achievement of higher quality, production in products and customer services, and reduction in inventory cost. This is very, very important. It's not functioning properly. I don't know. Yes. Now, here, as you may be knowing, that there are four issues. One is purchasing, second one is the manufacturing, third one is the distribution, and the fourth one is the sales. And yes. And when you talk about all these issues, we need to know the demand. We must refer to the demand forecasting, the procurement, manufacturing, distribution, inventory, transportation, and customer service. Now, SCM tends to be used in a wider sense and encompasses several supply chain processes, not necessarily related to logistics. Okay, so there are many other issues we are all aware of, in fact. Now, what kind of problem you may find, while you design the supply chain network? First is to quantify and optimize the trade-off between customer service levels. I presume that you know how to measure the service levels. There are many measures, there are many approaches, and inventory investment required to support the service requirements. Like say, typical hospital systems, or in today's context, there are items like say the nickel and to be imported, okay, for alloy steel plant. Now, obviously, if the supply chain is disrupted, is happening, so what will be the fate of the company? Similarly, there are raw materials, there are medicines, there are the foodstuffs, and these are essential items. So come whatever may, to maintain the standard of living, okay, for different strata of the society. If the supply chain doesn't work properly, the whole system collapses. So the problem in supply chain becomes challenging mainly due to dynamic nature of supply chains. This is known to you. Prolific product variety, that is one. Now the question is, there are two types of companies. One is the single product manufacturing firms. Another one is the multi-product manufacturing firms. It all depends on the kinds of product mix you have. And similarly, the short product lifetime you have to ensure, and the frequent new product introduction, that also you cannot avoid. So, non-stationary customer demand. We used to say that yes, the problem is the stochastic one. Okay, it's not only stochastic, it has also become non-stationary. So very difficult to define the problem, in fact. So if I cannot define the problem in exact terms, where is the solution? Even if I define the problem in exact terms, the solution may not be perfect, solution may be approximate. So that sort of problems, almost all the companies right now they're facing. And the two specific conditions to be met. One is performance of supply chains must be continuously evaluated. Do you have the mechanisms with you? Do you have the network? Do you have, every now and then you cannot hire, say, the consultant. So do you have this, internal capability? Or say the inventory service level trade-off has to be optimized. Okay, so there are many models available. Now, in the present industrial context, a farm manufacturing of surface belong to at least one supply chain. So, do you know that how the supply chain have been classified and which particular supply chain you belong to? So, this is a must, in fact. And even the new companies which are joining, or say the startup companies, they should be also be aware of. Okay, because as you may be knowing that my factory performance is totally affected by one part is the inbound supply chain, and on the outer side it is the outbound supply chain. So, and there must be perfect balance between these two, and the balancing unit or the factory systems actually, they try to balance these two. Okay, and this is a very critical issue, in fact. So the success of a farm depends on its management ability to integrate and coordinate intricate network of business relationships among supply chain partners. I presume that you know that who are the partners in your supply chain. Okay, next. Yes, how widely or narrowly a supply chain is managed is an indicator of the extent to which supply chain management is practiced. This is one important point. And supply chains can be managed as a single entity through a dominant member. So this dominant number referred to as predator, or through a system of partnership. Is it okay? Actually, who is actually controlling you? That should be known in your network. And as you may be knowing that there are hundreds of business models right now. It's working throughout the world. So which actually the business model you have already joined or you wish to join, or which business model is approximately explaining your activities. So this is this part I can ignore, like the definition of supply chains. I presume that all of you are aware of, and this is one area where you'll find that the literature. There's a huge volume of literature you come across. That there is a theory part, and there is hundreds of case studies. So SCM has passed through several stages of evolution during past 5 decades. As I've been telling you, in the 60s or even 70s, you never heard of this particular term, supply chain management. Logistics were there, definitely. There are reasons for this one. We used to assume that the cost related to the supply chain management. Those days there are not much alternatives, so that is assumed to be almost fixed, the constant. Today, the cost you incur for supply chain management is assumed to be a variable one. There are not many alternatives. So which alternatives to select? Technologies such as industrial dynamics and the minimum total cost approach to distribution and logistics is a very important area, in fact, when adopted. And as you may be knowing, in the Western business world, there are hundreds of researches going on. Okay, so for achieving competitive advantage, focus shifted from consideration of factors within the manufacturing plant to factors related to relationship development with the suppliers and customers. This is well known, in fact. So this is one. It's not moving fast. I don't know. Yes. So all these details I can skip right now because supply chain have several phases. So let me identify these phases. Phase one is department of a business organization functions independently. That is part one. Phase two, cost reduction without consideration of performance achievement. Is this feasible? Functional integration within the organization through materials management, manufacturing management, and distribution for smooth flow of the goods. Next one, I don't know. Yeah. This is a problem. Yeah. Change. One to the first one. Yeah, yes. So this is the supply chain network, like the inbound logistics, then you have the manufacturing, and then you have the outbound logistics. Now there could be different tiers. The like says tier 1 supplier, tier 2 supplier, tier 3 suppliers, and similarly tier 1 customers, tier 2 customers, and tier 3 customers. So there could be nth level on the left hand side. There could be, say nth level and mth level on the right hand side. So what do you try to do for as far as controlling the supply chain network is concerned? For effective control, including timely actions related to the activities of any member of the supply chain, assurance of timely and accurate information related to flow of materials and its implication to performance and quality is very critical. This is point number one. And the point number two is that the flow of information is reverse direction. So this is to be ensured, and the performance of an SC network is significantly affected by this information system. And so what do we try to do? That means while we study this generalized SC network, there are certain characteristics, you must, be aware of. First one is that each of inbound and outbound logistics can be represented by interlinked groups of suppliers or customers. That is first point. The second important characteristic is with respect to a manufacturer, working of logistic systems representing operations of network between first-tier suppliers to the manufacturer and the operations of network between manufacturer and the first-tier customers. So this is to be properly designed, in fact. Primarily affects the working of the manufacturing on consulting project on supply chain management. What do we find? That many of these companies, in fact, they're not aware of the kinds of supply chain performance model they should adopt. Okay, so this is a serious flaw in our system. In fact, many activities we do, and particularly in today's context, not only about the today's cost, but the total system cost also. You must build up an equation. The equation may not be that accurate, but let it be first approximation. But let there be one the total system cost equation, as well as you know. There will be long term or say what you can say that the long term impact also we should be aware of. In fact, all subsequent steps, modeling and analysis may consider linking the tier 1 suppliers to tier 1 customers in respect of specific objectives of the manufacturer. Now here comes the importance of the distribution requirements planning, or the DRP. And as you may be knowing that the DRP is linked with the MRP systems. So here, what you can do, that means a number of IT-enabled services like e-commerce, EDI, barcoding and scanning, internet, DSS, etc. should be used to facilitate the flow of information among the members of the SC concern. In today's context, this has become very, very important. In fact, it's crucial. Okay, so the storing methods is also an important issue at warehouses. As you may be knowing, there are different kinds of warehousing, like the bonded warehouses and all those. And the network, there are the common items, there are special items, and the network of the storing facilities across the country, across the region. So that's to be evaluated. And assessment of a given supply chain network requires that the key work elements or activities to timely supply of materials. This is one. At different control points across the supply chain. Now here, one particular country's name, comes to my mind. That is Japan, a country which is totally, 100% import based. The economy is 100% import based, and how they have developed the network of supply, particularly the getting the raw materials. Okay, so there is the models they follow, in fact, and always they are on the what you can say, they're on the toes all the time. Okay, and how do they control their the entire throughput time? That is most important, in fact, and they're maintaining the flow of materials. This is a very unique case, in fact. So we can learn many things from the Japanese organizations, because the point is very, very simple, that how to maintain the flow of materials within the supply chain. Whatever the method you follow, okay, whether it's a mathematical model or non-mathematical model or your common sense, doesn't matter. What you need to do, that means like, another very important, the modeling we can also use, that is the theory of constraints. Theory of constraints, you are all aware of, in fact, or say, the drum, buffer, rope, the scheduling. This is also, to be applied, particularly in this the critical situation, crisis time. So, to what extent we can adopt the Japanese the system? To what extent we can adopt the theory of constraints? To what extent we can adopt, the scheduling? These are very, very crucial. Another very important aspect we should be aware of, that is, you are all aware of, like say, third-party logistics, 3PL. That is understood by everyone. What about 4PL, fourth-party logistics? What we require, many companies, they are at a loss what to do. And obviously, if they get the support from the fourth-party logistics, I presume that what does it mean, fourth-party logistics? So that is also becoming very, very important as far as running your, the supply chain network is concerned. Is it okay? So from the 3PL is already been, even 20, 30 years back, we find in the literature that there are many applications of, say, the 4PL concepts. So that sort of, what you can say, a the brain is to be created, okay, through collaboration or others, so that these sort of problems, they're very one of a kind problems you might face. It's already happening at your in your company only. So you must get the support of say what kind of knowledge management you have within this. So important consideration is the selection of suppliers, then the supply chain integration, information sharing in SC, agile supply chain, you're all aware of, in fact. Sometimes, works until as late as is cost effective. Okay, so sometimes in today's context, you have to what extent you can apply this postponement strategy. The objective is to increase responsiveness and reduce product variations of a supply chain. This strategy fits directly to the principle of DBR scheduling in TOC. I've already mentioned about the TOC, theory of constraints. Then the vendor managed inventory is also a very important the topic that also you can introduce. BMI is well known, in fact. And of course, the transportation and logistics, these two important issues should be aware of. And there are many tools and techniques you can use. So for appropriate functional integration, the role of logistics is to gain competitive advantage with minimization of total inventory cost and long-term total average cost. Now, as you may be knowing, that there are three important, say, the performance measures of any company. Uh, First one is definitely the quality. You try to maximize quality. The second one is you try to minimize cost, and the third one is very important. That is, you have to reduce the entire throughput time. Now here comes the role of the supply chain uh, management. Okay, the third one is very, very important. Many PSUs, okay, on quality, they became sick because they didn't bother about whatever may be the reasons. There are reasons for this one. They never bothered about the total throughput time. So if we do not bother about the total throughput time reduction, it's all likelihood today or tomorrow the unit becomes sick. Third-party logistics I've already mentioned. In fact, this is there. This is inbuilt. Third-party logistics in any companies. What is not inbuilt is that is the fourth-party logistics. Now, when you talk about third-party logistics, now there is a risk associated in engaging a 3PL farm. There may be loss of control due to outsourcing a particular function. These days we talk about outsourcing, and ultimately in many cases, if you go through many cases, case studies, what you'll find that the outsourcing may cripple your supply chain network either today or tomorrow. So this is a very judicious choice, outsourcing. What kind of, suppose it affects, the core competency. If you go for outsourcing, today or tomorrow, it will affect your core competency. Then you are gone. Okay, there are many such cases, in fact. So you should be very, very careful about, outsourcing. Then fourth-party logistics, I have already mentioned, in fact, it is a kind of support to the company's logistics in which the supplier company offers a more integrated solution to SCM-related problems. Now, in our country's context, how many such, companies or the supplier company you can get? I'm not aware of, in fact. Obviously, there are few, but here, unless we develop the fourth party, the kinds of problems these companies are facing at this point in time related to supply chain management, they may not have the in-house expertise. So there must be a partnership with this supplier company. So a 4PL firm provides practical solutions to the company's problems in the areas of SCM. So a 4PL firm through long-term partnership, as I've already pointed out, and a single point interface. That is to be ensured, a single point interface. Otherwise, it becomes very, very risky. Provides a comprehensive solution to the SC problems through process redesign and the technology upgradation. So 4PL is the state-of-the-art supply chain outsourcing. So, and there's another concept called reverse logistics and environmental SCM. So this is also to be adopted, reverse logistics particularly. And reverse logistics, there are many important issues. First issue is the reverse logistics refer to SC networks, but products such as reusable containers, equipment or short-term rental and distributed by a company to its customers are subsequently returned to the company. Now, here, when the import becomes a problem in today's context, then alternatives you have to think of. So similarly, there are other issues like the design for disassembly, then the design for environment, design for reuse. All these issues are becoming very, very important. So three main advantages of all these issues when you try to consider: avoidance of disposal cost, reduced external material supply quantity, and reduced waste. So number of the product recovery alternatives you have already you are aware of. I'm not getting into it. So this is the total network. One is the forward logistics, manufacturing, storing, distribution, consumption, returns, and this is the reverse logistics: returns, disposal, sorting, remanufacturing. Okay, so you need to go through it. And what we try to do, that means the returns may be of different types, like major issues. It's one of the main issues, like manufacturing returns, commercial returns, product recalls, warranty returns, service returns. These are very important issues, in fact, end of use returns and end of life returns. So a country like ours, where there is a scarcity of resources, specific resources, so all these options you have to, you must be, all these issues must be included in the supply chain network. Okay, so these are the important issues, and just I want to highlight the important issues. Like one is definitely I've mentioned, that is to what extent the 4PL we can adopt outsourcing. The second one is the TOC, and the third one is DVR scheduling. And of course, we can we learn from the Japanese organizations. Okay, thank you so much. If you have any queries, definitely we can move to that. Okay, here. Hello.
Yeah, I think the questions
Yes.
can be taken in the QA session. We have a QA session at the end. We have a question and answer session at the end. Yeah. So, thank you so much, Professor Udit Kumar Roy. It was a very enlightening, extremely informative deliberation which we heard from him. I'm sure we have many questions, and we would like to have many questions actually, and we will do that during the end of this program in our question and answer session. Now we come to the technical session 2. This session will be deliberated by myself. This is on COVID-19 and the supply chain collapse. May I request Mr. Debraj to please help us with the slides.
No problem. Actually, the presentation is being, the slides are being controlled by the head office.
Yeah. No, it is controlled by National Skill Development Forum.
Right,
But
right.
that is one good, because we are not familiar with this platform.
Exactly.
We may get stuck.
Yes, that's why sometimes it's not
So I
working.
must thank National Skill Development Forum, who is helping us.
Yes, yes.
The slide is not visible. Yeah. Good afternoon, and I will quickly take you through a journey of post-COVID-19 supply chain collapse, challenges and solutions. And I'm sure many of the participants are from supply chain fraternity. Many of the supply chain managers might be sitting here. Many of supply chain professors are here. So we would like you to kindly see and observe what we are talking about, and then at the end of the session, we will invite you to kindly participate in a question and answer session. You see, we are all here, and we are all here, and we are talking on the subject of COVID, and we are actually on a digital platform, basically because of the crisis which has been created by impact of COVID-19. Now, if you see what it has caused many companies, almost all companies excepting few, has gone in deep crisis. This slide is after taking the situation of the global stock market, performance of various companies. And you are seeing that almost all companies are in red. And there are few companies who are trying to swim, or few companies who are going up and down with the surfing. But most of the companies are in red. Kindly go to the next slide. Yeah. Now, when we look at this, what comes to our mind is how do we plan this? Because this is a situation which is unnerving everybody. Now, how do we plan? How do we proceed? Now, here I feel tempted to quote Roy Charles Amara, who is an American researcher on futurist. And he says, we tend to overestimate the effect in short term, and we underestimate the effect in long term. That's exactly what is happening. We are all busy with the lockdowns. We don't have much time to understand what will happen after the lockdowns are over. And there comes the significance of this particular seminar. We are seeing supply chains have collapsed, no doubt in that. Many companies have closed. The Indian economy is contracting by 4 to 7.5%. This is a recent study by Bank of America. And at the same time, International Monetary Fund, IMF, is saying if we set everything right for the next fiscal, Indian economy can bounce back by 7.4%. At the same time, Google CEO Sundar Pichai is talking about 75,000 crores investment in India. So that means there is a ray of hope, and that's the future. And that's what we are talking, what we should do to pull out this supply chain, which is in deep trouble. Supply chains are in deep trouble. It has collapsed. No second thought. Companies are not able to perform. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, now typically it moves like this. We are right now in a phase of trauma. We call it episodic volatility. And then we are entering now in a phase 2, which is little getting stabilized. We are still in a deep crisis. And then maybe 8 months, 9 months, or a year, from now, we'll enter into phase 3. We are regressing to the mean. And you will see that we are coming to a new normal. Problem is, what are we doing to face that new normal? When you open up, when the industries again resume, are we ready? Have we done enough things now so that when the industries open up, we are back with again the kind of growth rate which we are trying to have? So that's the basic topic of today's discussion. What has gone wrong and how quickly, what we should do now, as far as we are purely talking in terms of supply chain. We are all supply chain guys. Next slide, please. Researchers have said this is what is going to emerge. The developed markets will shrink, take it for sure. Developed markets are those markets which has been developing under conventional ways. That will shrink to a level less than 30% of the global output. And what will grow is the emerging market. If you look at the recent studies which has been done by World Economic World Forum, they have published a good report and they are saying what are the new jobs which are emerging after COVID. Actually, the number of jobs are more than the number of jobs which are decaying. There is an absolutely new area of jobs are emerging. New supply chains will come in place. And the existing businesses will go off whether we like it or not. So that's why emerging markets will dominate. 50 to 80% will be the emerging markets. The markets whose language you have not heard so far. The markets which speak in a different language. Markets which talks about new technologies. Like I was very happy when Professor Bijan Sarkar talked about Industry 4.0. We'll be talking Industry 5.0. The new technology areas, new jobs, that's what is going to happen. And that will dominate 80% of the market. And therefore, the current supply chains will cease to exist. Be sure about it. Current supply chain means you have a store, you have a production, you have a delivery, you have a, we used to call it logistics. I thank Professor P.K. Roy to remind me about that. Then we started talking materials management. Today we have scrapped both these words. We are talking supply chain. And then we are scrapping supply chain as well. Now the age is coming for supply webs. Chain has got a linearity. Supply chain means you are moving linear. That will no longer be there. You will not move linear. You will move in a web. So we should call it rather supply web management rather than supply chain management. That's what is exactly going to happen in future. Next, please. So in short, what will happen is developed markets shall shrink with traditional ways of doing business and emerging markets shall grow with new ways of doing business. And there are plenty of new opportunities, new jobs, new supply chains which will come. Next. Next, please. Yeah, look at how the buying pattern is changing. People's buying pattern is changing. This is a study done for all the countries over the world. Other than Russia, which we don't understand the reason why, the buying pattern in all the countries have changed, which will impact all types of, you see the supply chain means what? On one side, you have the supplier. On the other hand, you have customer. The customer's buying pattern is changing, has changed already. We people who are sitting in home now, even your consumption pattern has changed. Similarly, the suppliers, their skill pattern is also changing because skills are, the workers, many of the skills are getting lost. So there is a demand-supply equation which is totally changing. Same demands are no longer there and same supplies are no longer. And that's the problem today of the supply chain. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, the economists, some of the professors of economy, because I'm sure since Pradeep is now heading the Vijisome is an extremely important area, and we are all very proud that he is heading Vinod Gupta School of Management of IIT. And we are very proud. All eyes are on him, that what changes he is bringing there. So I'm sure many of the professors are listening to his talk. Now, you see, the economists say that there are this kind of various scenarios which may come. One is V scenario, optimistic, U scenario, realistic, and L scenario, pessimistic. As far as India is concerned, I will say yes, L scenario, but we have a chance to bounce back. We are already negative by 4 to 7.5%, but there is a chance. We have to put all our minds together. All the IITs have to put their minds together. Next, please. There is a professor of economy. His name is Professor Taleb. He once spoke about a concept which he wrote a book on that, and the book became one of the bestsellers in the year 2007. And he predicted this kind of situation. He said, in any economic situation, there is a black swan who swims in. And by any kind of probabilistic model or any futuristic model, you cannot predict, or predictive model, you cannot say what is going to happen, when that black swan will swim in. And that's what has happened now. Nobody could predict. But the question is, if we are not able to predict, that means this may happen again. So therefore, we have to go to fundamentals and see how we can make supply chains robust so that black swan or no black swan, we have no problem, because this may happen again. So that's what we are going to discuss today, that what are those things which you should do to make your supply chain robust so that you do not run a risk of getting into a trouble again, because we are already in trouble. Next, please. If you ask our analysis, being a supply chain veteran, I've spent my entire life in supply chain, so to say. I was heading supply chain of 2 multinational companies, one very large national company, and I'm a professor of supply chain. I'm a practitioner of supply chain. I am the joint chairman of Center of Research in Materials Management. So we understand this subject pretty well. You see, if you say from where this problem of collapse of supply chain has happened, actually it is our own greed. It is our own greed which has landed us into this trouble. Now, if you ask me what is that greed, you see, all companies without exception, they wanted to grow, and they wanted to grow at the cost of another one. They wanted to become global. So in order you want to become global, what you did, you set your footprints all over the world. You talk about Amazon, you talk about any company. Everybody did that. And we have been encouraging that. We have been saying that, yes, how first you can bring a product to the market. Yeah, that's called time to market. We forgot fundamentals, that while you are putting your global footprint, you are going for global sourcing, are you also making the sources proximate to you in your large country like India very capable? Answer is no. A recent study, I am deeply connected with research. A recent study shows only 23% of Indian MSMEs are globally competitive. Only 23. So these companies, because of their greed, I would say, and there's nothing wrong in the greed, because you must grow at the cost of others. That's the philosophy we have learned so far. So that philosophy has tempted us to go out and put our sourcing everywhere and anywhere, including China or whatever. And we are in trouble. In Philips, I remember we had a performance indicator, how I'm cutting down my suppliers, reducing the supply base. It's called reduction of supply base. Okay? But we forgot that reduction of supply base is good, We used to get award. I have got that award from Philips, having cut the supply base by 20%. But we forgot, in our anxiety to cut supply base, have we also developed proximate good local supply base? We have not. And that is why you are in trouble today. So no point of blaming COVID or coronavirus. I'm purely talking from the point of supply chain point of view, not the virus point of view. So that's the problem we are in. Another problem we have created, we have not looked at integration. You know, in supply chain, I have been taking few classes in IIT Kharagpur. I don't know whether Pradeep will invite me again in future. We were talking about integration to our students. What is integration? Integration means you break the barrier of companies, industries, and the countries. You see, if you are heading a company and the company has got 4, I was heading Philips. We had a plant in Pune, we had a plant in Kolkata, we had a plant in different other places. Now, if you have multiple plants, you see, we propagate the theory that one plant should not look at other. We should compete. You know, who is better? That is against the way of integration. So Philips Pune plant Philips Kolkata plant used to always fight with Philips Pune plant because we used to say we are better than you. That worked against integration. Similarly, Tata Motors never saw eye to eye with Toyota. And look at what has happened to Tata Motors today. It's finished, out of the market. We never wanted to collaborate. That's called integration. And country to country, you look at what President of America is talking and what the Primer of China is talking. They do not look eye to eye. There is no integration in the world level, industry level, in the country level. So you are disintegrated. And COVID has come to teach us that you have to pay a huge price because of this disintegration. When we open up, you will see imbalanced inventory all over the world. You will see in a particular company, huge bearings are lying, automobile company, in another company, engines are lying, another company, axles are lying. And that will force you to integrate. You see, collaboration doesn't mean you are not innovative, you are not competitive. You look at Michael Porter's model. He has always said, go for collaboration. So we have actually created our own problem by not listening to the fundamentals of management science. The fundamental of supply chain is integration. Can we go to the next slide? Arising out of this, a company asked me, because we are in this consulting and research and all that. The company asked me, Dr. Sengupta, don't tell me many things. Tell me 2 things or 3 things which I must do now to prepare myself to make my supply chains robust. Don't tell me many things, tell me 2 things. So those are the 2 things I have written here. And I have applied this on some of our company. I will show you the case study of 2 companies if the time permits. One is lean supply chain, very easy to do. COVID has taught us that melt away your fat. Every supply chain, without exception, has generated fat inside the supply chain. And we said, redefine your supply chain through Six Sigma. So I will just touch upon these 2 concepts. Lean supply chain means take away the wastes from your supply chain. You see, we are talking about Industry 4.0. I told that gentleman, he is from Bangalore. He is setting up a supply chain for one of the largest pharmaceutical companies. So I told him, first you remove the waste. He wanted to go for Industry 4.0. I said, just wait 1 or 2 more months. Because if you go for Industry 4.0 on a system which is full of waste, then you are producing the waste faster. Automating a wasteful process means you are producing the waste faster. You are more efficient in producing the waste. Give me any supply chain. I can assure you, I will show you 10 to 20% waste is sitting in your supply chain. And I will tell you how to eliminate that waste. And second thing is Six Sigma. Six Sigma and beyond. Six Sigma is a methodology which is easy, particularly for engineers or with a little bit of good statistical background. It's very easy to implement on your supply chain. You see, there are two techniques in Six Sigma. One is called DMAIC, another is called DFSS. DMAIC is step-by-step improvement, and till you reach Six Sigma. DFSS challenges even the very existence of your supply chain. It says you need not to do, you need not to transport, you need not to produce here and do there. That's called design for supply chain. It basically hits you below your belt and says you need to perish this supply chain. Why you are talking about improving the supply chain? You don't need that supply chain. The supply chain is wrong in the first place. That's what is the power of this concept. Go to the next slide, please. I'll go to the next slide where I have to give the floor to my friend, Professor Roy. Yeah, I would request you to, many of the professors who are sitting here, I'm sure you have read the book. The name of this book is The Machine That Changed the World. That is actually Toyota. And it says, once you implement Lean, you will need half the hours of human effort in the factory, half the defects in the finished product, 1/3 the hours of engineering effort, half the factory space for the same output, and 1/10 or less of in-process inventory. This is what a case study on Toyota written by Professor Umer. And actually that is the power. He is humble, I would say, he has understated. Power of Lean is much more. And we need to make our supply chains lean and leaner and leaner. COVID will not give you options, luxuries, etc. to do. Next. Next, please. I won't go into this because I'm talking to a group of people who knows what is what. Okay, next. Next. Japanese, they have given 3 funny names. One is Muta, Mura, and Muri. The great people, they were taught by Professor Juran and Professor Deming, the guys who are from America, and America at that time didn't understand the value of those professors. And they said that Muda is the defect, Mura is the inconsistency, and Mura is the overwork. They said that if you are running a supply chain inconsistent, Professor Piqueroy talked about the performance measure of a supply chain. First of all, you must know, is your supply chain performing? If it is performing, what is the benchmark? So inconsistency in the performance, and overburden means you are running the supply chain with stress. If you are running the supply chain with stress, that itself is a waste. So those supply chains cannot produce good results. Next, please. Yeah, I will skip this. My eyes are on the watch. Actually, we have, the wastes in the supply chain. If we categorize, there are 8 types of waste: defect, overproducing, waiting, transportation, inventory, motion, overprocessing, and latent skill. Latent skill is that we are not able to use the potential of the people. And you look at this pie diagram, value added is only 10% maybe, and the remaining are all typically 10 to 40% of the turnover goes into the cost of non-quality. That's the subject. Yeah. Next. Yeah, this is the pictorial diagram of how the wastes are there in a supply chain. And as I told you, give us any example with a bet. I will show you 20% of your supply chain is producing waste. $100 company, $20 you are throwing in the drain, if not more. In a manufacturing supply chain, it can go up as high as 40%. So these are the kinds of wastes which you create in a supply chain. I've shown in a pictorial way. Next. I will not read this. Next. You see, wastes are always hidden. Again, I will not read this, because if we are able to see the waste, we would have removed. Supply chain wastes are all hidden. Next. Yeah, this is a value added and this is the waste. Most of the supply chains are operating on waste. Next. Next. Yeah, this is the non-value added, value added and all that. And you can see the kind of wastes which you are generating in a supply chain. This is a typical diagram where we feel that if we go for high sigma level, our cost goes up. On the contrary, the cost goes down. Next. Next. Value stream mapping is a process when we do the cleaning of a supply chain, we do the value stream mapping. And we try to find out how the value is moving. Again, the Porter model. And we try to understand how the values are moving and how the wastes are moving. Yeah, go ahead, please. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, stop here. You see, this is one of the example of a value stream mapping case. You see, in a earlier current state of value stream, it was taking almost a month for a product to come out. And in the future state of the value stream, it was taking a few days. That's what we said, that the very existence of the supply chain should be challenged. The supply chain, you see, we look at the supply chain and we take it as granted and we say we improve here and there, 10%, 20% and all that is all meaningless. Even the very supply chain, whether it should exist, that's the first question. That's what we call DFSS, design for supply chain. So VSM helps in redesigning the supply chain, throwing away the current supply chain and embracing a new supply chain. For lack of time, I will not be able to show this. Otherwise, I could have taken a case and I have two cases I will show you anyway. Go to the next. Yeah, go to next. Now we come to Six Sigma, a topic which is very close to my heart. Next. Next. There could not be, next please. Yeah, there could not be any better subject or method to straighten up COVID other than Six Sigma. But one has to understand really how does it work? How does the Six Sigma work? Go forward, please. Go forward. What is Sigma? I'm talking to the IIT students. I'm sure they know. Many of my students, I had spent a lot of time to explain this. That you know how in a normal distribution curve your arms become go away from the USL and LSL. Yeah, okay. Now to stop here, supply chain capability. This is very, very important, supply chain capability. Now, when we talk about supply chain capability, I would only say measure the CPCPK value. That's it, full stop, period. Don't say my supply chain is capable. If it is capable, measure the capability. And if you don't get an accepted value of CPCPK, many of the companies say we don't know how to collect data. So that's the problem in the first place itself. So we must calculate the value of CPCPK and understand what is that, what we need to do. Go next, please. Next. Yeah, this is a process capability. How do we define the process is shifting to the left, shifting to the right, etc., etc. Next. I will bring you back to a supply chain because people may be little getting this thing that how do we apply this specification, etc., to a supply chain. You have promised your customer that you will give him the material at 7 a.m. tomorrow dot. So you measure the capability. And you have said it may be 5 minutes early or 5 minutes delayed. So that's your USL and LSL. And you measure. You find out the CPCPK. And if you see that you are not performing, then go to either DMAC or you go to DFSS. If you say continuously it is happening, scrap your supply chain, go for DFSS, redesign your supply chain. Next, please. Yeah, this I think many of us, we might be knowing that how the CPCPK value works. In such a small time, I don't want to explain. Okay, next. Yeah, look at this. If you are 6 Sigma level, 3.4 million opportunities, your supply chain is delivering wrong product. And your cost of poor quality is less than 1% of sales. Next. The 6 Sigma, actually, there is a misconception. People thought that Jack Welch has written nice books. But GE was not the inventor of 6 Sigma. 6 Sigma was invented at Motorola. And there is a Motorola University who teaches 6 Sigma. Next. And these are the companies. You name any company, they have reaped the benefit through 6 Sigma. Their supply chains have become very agile and very lean and very vibrant. COVID will run away looking at the strength of those resilience power of those supply chains. I will show you a case of DuPont if the time permits. Next. As I told you, the supply chain, simplistically saying, you can do the redesign applying either DMAC. DMAC is define, measure, analyze, improve, control. It's one of the 6 Sigma's way of working. Or, kindly go to the next slide. Or DFSS, design for 6 Sigma. The difference between these two is DMAC talks about improvements and it brings improvements. Maybe 10 times, maybe 50 times. DFSS, I like this concept more. It challenges the very existence of that process or the supply chain. It says this is no good. You can't get improvement in this process. Redo the entire thing. And when you are redoing the entire thing, you have to just look at your customer. Hear the voice of the customer, which we call VOC. You look at the customer and you look at your suppliers and you find out how do you relate between the two. Next. Go next. I have to, yeah. This is a very interesting diagram. You see, DMAC is define, measure, analyze, improve, control. And DFSS or DMA, DV is define, measure, analyze, design, and verify. So, if we find that does a process exist? If it is yes, we go and measure. If there is no, we go and define. Is an incremental improvement sufficient? If it is yes, we further go and improve. If it is no, we analyze. Is new design necessary? If it is no, then we go and control. If it is yes, then again we go and design the thing. So this is a very fundamental thing to understand whether you should go for DFSS or DMAC. Next. Yeah, I will show you, there are two cases for paucity of time I will not be able to do. One is on an American axle manufacturing company. The company plant is in Chennai. They make axles. They are headquartered at Detroit. And I guided them for a supply chain Six Sigma project. And the other case was on DuPont, but that will take further more time, so I have to stop with this case only. I will quickly take you through what was the problem in this company and how Six Sigma changed their entire fortune. Next slide, please. You see, this was the problem. I visited their shop floor and these companies are so good, they exhibit everything in the shop floor. They don't hide. So I saw this downtime. In industry, we call it downtime. Downtime means your production line is waiting for want of material. It's a very common term in industries. Some people call it waiting time, some people call it downtime. That is on your right. You are seeing the trend of the downtime, a lot of variation. On the other one is a OEE. OEE called overall equipment efficiency. Now, in both I picked it up from there when I was visiting the shop floor. And I came back and told their MD that downtime for want of material is a cause of concern as far as your company is concerned. He said, how do we do it? I said, go for a Six Sigma DMAC project. Go to the next slide, please. Yeah, this is how the material was flowing. Go to the next slide. And these are some of the things we analyzed through the DMAC project. We calculated the capability of the supply chain lines. Go to the next. We used Deming wheel, which is called PDCA approach. You see, DMAC will tell you where is the problem. Then you need to do certain things there, depending on the type and nature of the company. So we did this. We call it Plan, Do, Check, Act, Deming wheel. Go to the next. Go to the next. Then we proposed a new system. Go to the next. We created a new material flow strategy, which is unique, which is not written in any of the books, which is called supermarket approach. You create a supermarket inside a company. Okay? Not written in any book. Books should be written on this. They should learn and write books. Next. Next, please. These are the certain improvements which we did there. Go to the next, please. Just roll on the slides. Yeah, roll on. These are all done there as a part of the Six Sigma project, DMAIC project. Roll on. Roll on, please. Roll on. Yeah. Next. 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 You see, these are the tangible benefits, the huge benefit the company incurred, and they are still doing pretty well. And they got it because of this Six Sigma approach, which I had the opportunity to guide them. Go to the next slide, intangible benefit. Go next. This is the return on investment. Go next. Yeah, this is a DuPont case. I'm afraid I will not be able to. This is a very excellent case where I was involved, but I will not be able to run through this case. It's a large case. So I would like to reiterate that supply chains all over the world is under a state of collapse. Now the state of collapse has happened because it is created by the companies themselves. They did not pay much attention to some of the fundamental things like capable vendors, proximate and capable. They were very busy in increasing their turnover and profitability. Number two, there was no there was no connectivity, which in the supply chain, we again and again we have cautioned that we use a term called integration, supply chain integration. That was never in place. We never looked eye to eye. And we never cared for some of the fundamental things in the supply chain. Now, COVID has done good, I would say. Future is bright. And we must know where to put the control. There are many things. Phase one, I'm suggesting two things. Remove the waste. Implement lean. Make your supply chain leaner. Use Six Sigma, either DMAC or DFSS. Once you do that, your set is clean. Then we'll tell you step two. Step two is new technology. No escape. You have to go for newest technology, Industry 4.0 and beyond. But step one is this, because most of the Indian companies are suffering from problem of step one. And time is not much. You will not get more than 7 to 8 months time. Because once the COVID is over, you will see a very exciting scenario. But you will see your existing market is out of your hand. It's a new supply chain, new market, new way to compete in that market. And this is the time when we must learn this. And I thank Institute of Engineers to have organized this kind of thought-provoking seminars at this time. And I thank Professor P.K. Roy for a wonderful introduction he has given. And I have exceeded time by 10 minutes. And I would now request Professor S.N. Roy to kindly take over and we will start the question and answer session sometime 5 past 5. Thank you so much. Over to Professor S.N. Roy.
Well, am I audible, sir? Sir, am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
Hello? Audible? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yes.
Professor Shingappa. Thank you very much for your session. Your session is a very thought-provoking and it's very learning. I was actually hearing and I was very attentive to get some new ideas about the future of supply chain management. It's a very, very important. So I am very delighted with these deliberations. But if I am allowed to speak about that, I don't have any presentations. I will just deliver my thought process, which was given to me, that what should be the future of supply chain management. In doing so, that I will discuss about that thing is that the future world itself is very much associated with the supply chain management, because it is getting always a future. But why? Because I was observing, before I am going to do this about or deliver about the future of some of the issues of supply chain management after 2020, the beginning of 2020 and the end of 2020, after the end of 2020. So I like to have a very short brief about what the future of the supply chain has crossed. The one, if we divide our supply chain management, this entire scenario, in the 6 decades, we'll find that 6 decades we can divide in the 3 major scenario areas. There is 60 to 80, which Professor Roy has already told, 80 to 2000 and 2000 to 2020. That always the supply chain management, these issues and these actually the models and the programs are getting affected by the future, very near future and very long future, that is actually the change in the environment of the business. That is not only the your technical changes, but on the socio-economic changes. This is directly affected in the supply chain management. Now, if I say like this, 60 to 80, which Professor Roy mentioned, again, I'm repeating that one, that we started our work in the 70s and we find out that yes, the issue was not there, supply chain management, it was the procurement. The procurement, now, definitely at that point of time, procurement faced challenges or the changes. What challenges? The procurement, the responsibility was only to arranging the materials as per the requirements. Neither they are challenging the requirements, neither they did have any control over the quality and the supply quantity. They didn't have any control. And result came out end of the 60 period, end of this period, we found there is a huge non-moving, slow-moving, and also the absolute dead stock, which definitely faces the future challenges of supply chain management. What happened? I'm telling you that this is not only the inventory problem or inventory management problem. It creates a problem huge in the warehouse space problem, non-availability of the customers on time. That problem faced. Now we cross that one. The future, what is the future? Future is 82,000. And the 82,000 future, we have seen that it is a question of integration, which Professor Sengupta was telling, that there is a question of integration. Whether there is no integration, that the supply chain cannot work effectively. And integration, the future integration at that point of time was that not only the procurement, but the management of the inventory and also the distribution must have to be integrated properly so that the question and the sufferings, that is the manufacturing, customers and the suppliers, that suffering is over. And it goes up to the level, that is a manufacturing will go for the customers and also suppliers, which was already told. So that feature at that point of time was very much wanted. And that was fulfilled by cost effectiveness as well as some of the methods were actually incorporated, which I will tell the extension of these methods after 2020, what it should be. Now, the methods were, the one is definitely the ERP, e-commercializations, now the radio frequency identifications. So all these things were coming as a future requirement after the 82,000 period. Now, that has definitely the future requirement at that point of time was, that is the activity-based costing. And it goes for the dynamic resourcing and the activity-based costing that requires. Now, sitting in the 2020, we faced a different problem. Why we faced a different problem? We faced a different problem because there is a globalization. There is no boundary. There is no boundary of any your procurement, supply chain. So dynamic sourcing only coupled with some strategic and contingencies planning, that as a hedge against the demand forecasting. It comes as a hedge to the demand forecasting. Now the evolution, this sort of evolution, now sitting in the 2020, we definitely have a question of future. Sitting in the 2020, we are now considering the future, what should be the supply chain management strategies. The first is changing from the chain optimization to the enterprise optimizations. That is very important. And while we are talking about the enterprise optimizations, it should be addressed to the SMEs, because that is the most important part of it. Now the concept of the inventory, that is a vendor managed inventory, quick replenishment system. Professor Roy was mentioning about the 3PL, 4PL, also the 5PL. These all requirements are now standing in front of us to combat with the supply chain challenges. Lot of research and studies were undertaken. First, researches and studies I will speak about, that correct utilizations of the warehouse and the spaces. I have my own studies and the postdoc studies. I did it, and I presented my paper to Praha University of Slovakia. That paper was actually pointing out to the fuzzy logic, application of the fuzzy logic to warehouse spaces. So now that became a very critical problem, because the utilization of the spaces is a very critical problem. Now, what is now challenges? Now, future sitting in the 2020 challenges is frequent shipment. Now, the huge warehouse not required. Vendor management inventory is failing. So, what happened? The fuzzy logic also has given us a particularly balances of the warehouse utilizations to the frequency of supplies and the different delivery centers. But now the quick delivery, and the short deliveries and the quick deliveries are the challenges. So now these challenges can be, the challenges are ahead, and now these challenges can be met by one of the model which have already applied companies, which is known as the branch method. The branch method, if we apply that one, these are under the applications under the trial. These applications will give you the ideas about the branch and broke method application, will give you the ideas about how to control the delivery method, avoiding the past model of spoke and hub. The spoke and hub model is not it will not be very much effective in the near future. So what model? The branch and broke method. Here you will find the systems can efficiently handle with the optimal cost of operations. Now the supply chain at present, after 2020, is facing a completely challenges, socio-economic challenges. Why? The COVID-19, after that, there are a lot of your models or a lot of suggestions are there to utilize the Six Sigma and other process, definitely, and lean process, definitely there. But here a very basic question and the very basic challenges are coming. The basic challenges are actually socio-economic challenges. Why? Basic challenges. Now, there are two aspects are most important. One is PPP, the probability of purchase. This is the purchase capacity, that is purchase probability, and another is the spend management. Not only the purchase capability, that is called as the priority of the purchase probability. The priority will change, and definitely the priority has already changed, and that's why it's a problem for the orthodox manufacturing system, and the orthodox supply management system is not coping up with that. The priority of the purchase power of probability, purchase power probability changes, and why this changes? This changes due to the effect, that is actually the shutdown effect, the low income group effect, and the small requirement effect. This the consumers and the customers are changing from the bulk to the small requirement. So delivery and the supply chain has to cope up with that, and therefore it is basically hitting the reasons of spend management. So distribution centers, locations, these are definitely not going to give the solutions with the spark and hope and the orthodox management. Now, if we analyze the whole situation of this, if we analyze that one, we can find out a very re-engineering process. That re-engineering process is named as scenario analysis. Scenario analysis, where each scenario is unique. So when each scenario is unique, the analysis will be totally different. So there should not be a general model for challenging the issues of supply chain management. It's a scenario analysis is very important. After COVID-19 scenario, this pandemic situation, efficiency of the LP modeling is not really restricted. Why? Because this is actually definitely, this is calling for the economy of scale. Now the economy of scale, it is in the LP model, it is talking about the unit cost decreases with the higher volume. Now the change scenario is telling there's not a requirement of the higher volume, but a small volume with the different frequencies of delivery or supply. So the areas to be re-optimized, one is the space, another is the utilization of the resources. Space, I have already discussed about the space. That I have already told the space utilization will be totally different. And I can quote my that work which I have presented in the universities. That is the utilization of the space with the fuzzy logic solutions. So that has given me an idea about that. Now the quick replenishment of supply chain requirement in the future, it will definitely destroy the idea of the space and contracts, and also it will destroy the scenario. I can tell you that is the that APA system. APA system is a very common and very important factor system. That is door-to-door small delivery. Now we are observing that thing is happening, door-to-door small deliveries. Now, how it will be cost effective? Very small delivery, door-to-door. Now, shrinkage of the utilization of the large manpower, the shrinkage of utilizations of the delivery systems. That is the model, actually the delivery modes. So, it is a short delivery with the different modes. These are actually becoming the future supply chain management. So, optimize these model. It is really requirement of the scenario analysis, and this scenario analysis will have a challenge. Now, when you are talking about the scenario analysis, that each scenario you have to analyze and you have to bring up the model or bring up the instant model of that. That gives me an idea about these things. That when we are talking about the reverse logistics, you will find nowadays the people are very much concentrating on the reverse logistics. But in the 90s, when I faced this problem in actually the conversion, one of the international conversion companies I was working. So that I felt that problem. That is, the reverse logistics cannot be dealt with a single distribution point. So we have to develop the multiple distribution point to capture about the reverse logistics. Otherwise, the cost of operations will go. And at that point of time, when you are building up that sort of multiple centers, the people are asking that why you are so much of focusing on this developing of the multiple centers. It appears that you know that your quality of the products is definitely inferior, respecting a reverse logistics. It's a very interesting and is very common question raised by the different houses. But the thing is, the more you are efficient in the reverse logistics process, it is not required that you are to undermine the quality of your products, but the quick delivery to the customers. The quick delivery to the customers is the most important factor in that scenario. So this now scenario management or scenario analysis is reflecting in the future. There are three changes. One is internal and external data are effective dealing with the uncertainties. But what does it mean? It means the internal. Hello, I'm audible. I'm audible. Hello, I am audible.
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Okay. So I did not understand that whether I'm audible. But okay, fine. Okay, thank you very much. The internal and the external data must be very effective dealing with these uncertainties. Why I'm talking about the internal and external data? Now you find once you develop your data, it can act in the orthodox supply chain management system. Now, after 2020, beginning of the 2020 was different, but after 2020, the scenario analysis definitely will generate more internal data, and also more external data. So to deal with that, these internal and external data must be very much effective. The second point is not applicable to the long-term strategic planning. Since it is a scenario management, supply chain management has to deal with the scenario management. So there should not be any long-term model or long-term strategic model or strategic principles. That is definitely are not going to be effective. Now, third point is another important point, very much important, that constant multiple scenario associated with the probability of your access That is very important factor. The constant multiple scenario probability of accept is a very important factor. Now, extension of the linear and the mixed integer programming, as earlier also told, that mixed integer programming, it should be addressed to the stochastic programming. Now, stochastic programming will be definitely the requirement of the future supply chain to combat the future supply chain changes. Now, it will definitely serve as the optimal contingencies plan for each scenario. So we have to definitely develop in the future a optimal contingency plan for each scenario. Referring, I was actually speaking to you that this is optimal scenario model is being tried by the Ajax computer. Ajax computer is trying this model, and this model is becoming very effective. I can tell you that this scenario model will be definitely effective in the, it is on the process of development, but it will be effective in the coming supply chain address or issues. In case of the engineering products and the high-tech products, we are discussing about these things. In case of the engineering products and high technology products, these stochastic programming, but in case of the FMCG products and also the pharmaceutical products, these future programming of the supply chain will not be effective. Now, if I go for the case of the FMCG products, you'll find the FMCG products are now actually facing a problem, that is the options. The options are too many, and the choice of the customers are definitely changing. So these demand are absolutely uncertain to cope up the demand with the FMCG and the delivery. That the theories of the bulk purchasing is absolutely vanishing day by day, and one of the reasons is the purchasing power of the people and also the spend management. These two issues are very important and has got a tremendous leverage and effect on this particular supply chain management and the model. Now, in case of FMCG models, I'm telling you, the FMCG, the local delivery, the retail procedures, and the distribution by the different delivery centers are most important in case of the, and therefore it depends on the individual people and also the short deliveries. So what is the constraint that you are going to face? Here there are two constraints we are going to face. One is the capacity and that's the time. The capacity is also a very important factor because the small delivery, the people, vehicle, the capacity has to be analyzed for that. And multiple delivery with the shortage of delivery with the multiple frequencies, that time is also a factor. So cost and the time, capacity and the time are the two factors. So when I was talking about these things, initially I was telling that internal and the external, these two data are more important. The internal data will be the capacity of the delivery system, and external data, the requirement and demand and the frequency changings from the customers. These two data must be very important, updated for supply chain issues in future for FMCG items. I already talked about the stochastic and other programming for the engineering items and also for the high-tech items. But FMCG items, these particular capacity time factors are the major factors. Now, if I see about the supply chain pharmaceutical products, now supply chain pharmaceutical products has got also a very peculiar, I can tell you, a peculiar issues. Now, supply chain mainly for the pharmaceuticals are not very much affected, but will not be affected in the future. But the usual these things is the channels of delivery, channels of the delivery channels. Now, the orthodox delivery channels are really applicable to the pharmaceutical products, but not in case of the critical products, critical health products. Why? The critical products have got the two issues. One is every pharmaceutical products is actually the perishable products. It has got a time limit, but in the critical products, the sensitivity of the time limits are totally different. There are a lot of works, lot of experiment and research work was been carried out. I can tell one of the research work, which I have sent this research work to Dr. Shapiro Dr. Shapiro was actually is a professor of Soloni School of Management, MIT. So my work was actually in that case, that is it is actually addressed to that. That is optimizing the supply chain performance of perishable items of healthcare services using the multi-stage dynamic programming by application of Venn equation. That work we did, and that I have given to the, I have sent these things to Dr. Shapiro, the professor of Sloan, to check up this particular issues, particular subjects, and things in actually the Northeast. That was, I'm telling you, the future supply chain management on perishable items products. That is the National Conference on the Public Procurement, Planning and Supply Chain in the Medical Institute and Allied Organizations in February 15, 2010. So this thing, I must just briefly describe about that thing. That is the critical perishable item, the critical pharmaceutical products, the perishable items. This cannot be controlled by simply a different channel methods of pharmaceutical supply chain issues. This has to be definitely critically analyzed with the Venn diagrams and the T diagrams. And here, the Venn equation will give you the optimality of it. So why it is required? Because the one side, the critical these drugs are very much essential for the human beings, and also study shows that 40% was waste in the line wastage. The 40% wastage in the over period, and also the shelf life is over. So that problem is absolutely, it is a human and social problem, where the drugs are very much essential requirement. And here, so here in the future after 2020, to address the issues of coming challenges in the supply chain for the pharmaceutical is a very important part. So overall, we have seen the supply chain management challenges are definitely it's always facing a ongoing future challenges from 60 to 80, 80 to 2000, 2020. And you have seen sitting in the 2020, we are anticipating these things. There is a stochastic programming. The spoke and hub model is absolutely not applicable, and we are actually anticipating the scenario analysis process. In each scenario will be definitely that must be some dynamic programming on that. It's similar. So the simple LP model will not be effective at all. So that must be some extension of this. So that optimization, that is the enterprise optimization, is is actually the address. It is the issues to be addressed in the future after 2020. And in case of the FMCG items, there must be a different approach. In case of the pharmaceutical items, the approach should be totally different. So this is my deliberation about what the future we are looking for. It's a very short and a very brief the deliberations and analysis I have made. So I have conducted that thing. I have interacted that thing. Now it is a question that whatever the questions are coming. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity for just expressing my views about the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. S.N. Roy. I think you have really touched upon a very interesting area, and I'm sure all the participants will get greatly benefited. You spoke about the scenario building exercise. Now, you know, LG Electronics had become LG Electronics because they have been applying this particular method, scenario building exercise, very extensively. Okay, now we shall start one of the most interesting part of today's program, that is question and answer session. So we would request all the participants kindly ask question. While you ask question, you speak out your name. We would like to know who is speaking. And then you can also say to whom you are addressing the question, to a particular panelist, or you are addressing in general. So we request the questions to come. Now, can the host help in when somebody is asking the question, you would like to hear the question. Is it possible? The host, National Skill Development Forum. Is it possible to hear the question? When a participant is question. Okay, sure. Because the supply chain is such a dynamic area, we would like to hear them rather than chat box. Okay. So the house is open for questions. Can we request the participant to ask the question, please?
Hello, am I audible, professors? Yes, my name is Mitra Varun Ghosh. I am a research scholar from IIT Kharagpur, and I'm working under Professor Ray. So our first question I am going to ask to Professor P.K. Ray. The question is that, sir, you have mentioned that application of TOC in this dynamic changing scenario of supply chain management. But my question is that TOC in there is a very critical part is that the evaporating cloud, where you need to solve the dilemma among the supply chain participants. But where the dilemma itself is unknown and it's still changing, how can you build this evaporating cloud? And if we cannot build the evaporating cloud, then the TOC concept itself is not applicable. So can you just explain this part, sir? How can you ascertain this dilemma whether if the future is totally unknown and it's changing over time?
Can you just repeat your the question, because I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sir, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can. Yeah.
Okay, sir. The question is that, sir, you have mentioned application of theory of constraints in this dynamic changing scenario of supply chain management. So the first thing I am going to ask you that in TOC there is a very important thing called evaporating cloud, where you need to solve the dilemmas in the members in the supply chain, so that we can proceed to the future state. But where in this case in COVID-19, as the research is still going on and the scenario is itself changing, the dilemma or the future event from which the dilemma is to be anticipated, it is changing. So if the future itself is unknown, that means without having any reference point, how can you compare and how can you solve this dilemma problem? So if evaporating cloud cannot be made, then we cannot use TOC.
So
can you enlighten?
Yes. As far as the management of resources is concerned, there are two aspects. One is the amount or the level, and the second one is the time. Okay. Now, when hello.
Yes, sir. I can hear you, sir.
Yeah. Yes. You can hear me now. The question is, and when you talk about the planning, if the future is known in the sense that suppose, say the one particular aspect is the demand, okay, is known even with risk. That means there is a probability distribution of demand. Okay, that is known. Problem under risk. Now, at least you can make a plan for, say, the next 5 years or 10 years. Supposing that is highly erratic, you never know that what is going to happen next point in time, and that sort of situation right now we are facing. What is the alternative? Alternative is essentially an online real-time control. So as I mentioned in my lecture notes, like say, the information system is to be developed. Okay, and there are, high level or high quality information system already being developed. So it is essentially day-to-day control. This is the first part. The second part is that you have to make a correct decision, and that is most important. When you make a decision on this, definitely you must be aware of, as a decision maker, as a policy maker, you should be aware of that what kind of risks you may have. Like Professor Roy has already pointed out, like say the scenario generation. That means everything goes fine. What you could expect, what sort of control measures you can take. If everything goes against you, okay, lot many constraints, and you are totally puzzled. So in that case, what you need to do, first thing is the unit of analysis is very, very important. Okay, whether the problem lies as far as supply chain is concerned at the company level or at the plant level or at the department level or at the operations level. This is very, very important. So that integrated framework and for making decision that the time period, okay, at what frequency we'll take a frequency of time we take the decision, it depends on what is your, essentially your the unit of analysis. This framework you have to develop, and the data you have to monitor constantly. No mathematical modeling is possible. Is it okay? So, previously we used to have the Carl Pearson systems of equation. But today, that I have already mentioned, that it is to be if to rewrite those equations. Is it feasible? Because those days, there's information system support was not that strong. Today, we have moved. Okay, so you can get scenarios. So let it be this, 1 day's plan, or say 1 week's plan, 1 month's plan. Let it be. Okay, that's the only way you can do. So the network building and an open approach. Normally, what happens in supply chain? There's a hard fact sheet. There are many hidden players. Now the hidden players, it's an open secret. There are many hidden players. There are historical reasons and all, and they are the men, controlling the keys. Okay, so now today, what has happened in the information system? All the hidden players, must be exposed first. Okay, that's very important in fact. Okay, so these are the main issues to make a best possible situation. But then again, in the supply chain, there are many players, and these players, you are the factor. The interests are very, very conflicting. There's another problem. In fact, there's another problem, and in the supply chain, suppose you have your factory. With respect to the factory, you are interacting with the supply chain players. Now, those players, they come from different companies. Okay, maybe they represent other companies. So their interests and your interest may be conflicting with one another. Getting my point? So what we have found while we do carry out the research work on the supply chain management, that means for whom you are making the model and what is your unit of analysis. That is most important. But in today's context, the information system support, will be, very, very robust, and they will give you the solutions. But then again, it's a short-term planning. What else you can do? Like MRP, the ERP systems, as such, there is no mathematical model. Is it okay? That's the only way you have to do. Okay? Okay, fine.
Sir, thank you very much.
But the theory of constraints, the total framework must be known.
Okay. I have one and last and final question for Professor Gautam Sengupta as well as to Professor S.N. Ray, because Professor Ray has already told us that dynamic programming thing applicable in supply chain management. So let me tell you, I have been engaged in analysis on healthcare management and the impact of COVID-19 on healthcare management. I am doing research on this, and this is a future course of research on my topic. So what I have found out that in most of the healthcare system, they have proposed that is a viable systems model, where there are 4 or 5 subsystems and all those stuffs were there. But the problem is that viable system model builds on the concept of recursive relationship, which is the backbone of dynamic programming. But recursive means you need to fix a base first, then the recursion can be built. Now, my point is that in case of healthcare management, which is already flooded, healthcare systems are already flooded with COVID-19 patients, and already it is almost at the brink of destruction almost. So if that is so, then the base how can we build the base? If we cannot build the base, then the recursion cannot be formed. And the whole, this regulatory aphorism and all our stuffs, whatever are their regulation framework and controlling framework, that cannot be even made. So can you tell me, sir, from 2 aspects, first of all, healthcare, and second of all, already Professor Sengupta was mentioning regarding the food supply chain and all the consumer supply chains, how can this base framework can be made, base thing can be made? before even proceeding to the recursion? Because I have been interested in applying dynamic programming in healthcare supply chain management.
You see,
Professor
first of
Shangar?
all, before I request Professor Roy to respond, first of all, I thank you very much. You know why? Because you are the first person to ask the question. You know, so you have broken the silence and asked the question. So I must congratulate you.
Thank you very much, sir.
I feel tempted to supplement the answer which Professor Pradeep Kumar Roy had given you on theory of constant. You see, we are here, all of us, we are here, and we are talking on a digital platform. Why? We could have met you in the IIT conference room, is it not? We are talking on a digital platform because of the COVID. First, let us understand that. Okay. All discussions are centering the current situation. Okay. Now, current situation is what? Current situation is putting a strain on your resource. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yes, sir. Of course. Resource crunch is there.
Yeah, you are a research scholar. Keep your mind very focused. So, COVID and supply chain, how it is impacting supply chain, the resource is under strain. Whether you like this word or not, resources are under strain. What can be a better approach than TOC? You see, theory of constant came in being by Goldratt, the famous person. He bought this, saying that the industries and the companies are doing mistake in creating capacities. Because
Yes,
capacities are of no use. You have to think for whom you are creating the capacity. If you look at that model which Professor Roy described, drum rope model, it basically working on constants, not on the capacity. So what could be a better application than, TOC in this situation? I worked for Philips for many years. I created Philips in West Bengal, for your information. They used to create large plants, saying that 100,000 capacity of making television. Okay. In Salt Lake, we created a plant, 100,000 capacity per shift. For whom you are creating? And any large plant will give a stress on your financial structures. TOC will tell something different. TOC will say, learn the way of resolving or solving your constraints and take the problem to a different height. Would I answer your question? You are a young boy. You must understand your question should be very focused.
Sir, in that case, if
I have congratulated you because you have shot the first question.
no, so the thing is
what could be a better concept than TOC? You see, those guys, the Goldratt and all, when they speak on TOC, they put fingers on the researcher's eyes, so-called theoretician's eyes, saying that what are you doing? You are creating capacity for whom? So theory of constant works on not capacity building, utilization of the capacity. I just thought I should help you.
Yes, sir, that is true.
Second point I want to tell you, you are a researcher. COVID is shaking up the research, let me tell you. Those research which has got no practical application or societal application, please stop it. With my folded hand, I am requesting. For 2 more years, stop it. With folded hand, you are not able to see my hand probably. You see, those luxuries are gone. If the research doesn't have a societal impact, it is only on a piece of paper. Just stop it until it is giving a value to the society. On healthcare system you are doing, I congratulate you, but that's what we need. Okay, but let that not remain within certain formula and mathematical model. Please implement it. Once you implement it, I will request you to come for a party. Okay. In these times, I don't know how to give a party to you. Okay. Now, Professor Law, I'm sorry, I know him. In the sense, I know his face. He's a very bright young researcher. So I thought I must tell you.
I don't know. What is the name of the researcher? What is the name of this researcher, please?
Mitra Barun Ghosh, sir. Mitra Barun Ghosh. My name is Mitra Barun Ghosh.
Your question on the, yes, in a very short time, I delivered these things. That I pointed out two things. One is the internal and external data. Stressing on the internal external data. Why? You want to build up a base for working. Now, there are two things, internal and external data development.
Muted. Unmuted.
What is that? Issues. I definitely point out that again my own theories of scenario analysis. Why? That this is very new, and you have to develop the data for the base. The base you will not get now, and definitely it require and the requirement, the very nascent requirement and the varied requirements will be definitely have to judge that one, and you have to develop the base. If you don't develop the base, old theories or theories. So that's actually okay. Hello. There is some problem in the sound. Hello. 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 Is audible? Hello. Hello. It is audible. You have high answers, or is audible to you, or not that? There is some inversions in the cannot.
Hitting it properly. Problem is this.
I couldn't get the question.
Yes. There is some reference. Anyway. Hello.
I'm not getting it.
I'm not getting the name, neither the question.
Yeah. Neither the question nor the name.
I heard the earlier question. He was quite good. The young researcher was asking a question. That I heard, but I could not hear Professor S.N. Roy's reply to him. The last part of the Professor S.N. Roy's reply.
There are disturbances, in fact, the disruptions.
Okay. Yeah. What is the next question? Can we see on the chat box? Can you show the chat box? Yeah. How do we open the chat box? Can you show the chat box on the screen? Okay.
The chat box. Yes, yeah. You can. Oh.
Okay. I think Professor Roy will respond to it. Yeah. Good question. Anyway.
Okay. Shall I answer your question? Hello. Okay. See, the 3PL essentially, it's basically your relationship with your supplier. Fine. So you place an order for something to a supplier, and there is a procedure of supplier selection. Is it okay? And you follow that procedure. You place an order, and essentially, in many cases, most of the cases, it is a credit purchase, and you have the terms and conditions. Okay, you get the item. Fine. And it serves your purpose as per the quality, as per the quantity, as per the timeliness, and you assess his performance and all. Fine. Now, this is one specific job, whereas 4PL is slightly different. That means, for running your organization, you need different kinds of support. And because of historical reasons, many other reasons, in fact, you have many severe limitations. Like, for example, most of the Indian companies, you name any product, engineering sector I'm talking about, the design is not known. Okay, design is not known. There are historical reasons, in fact. And for getting the actual design, we look westward. Now the question is, in today's context, that is just one example I'm giving you. Okay, whereas for many other non-engineering products, like say Varanasi Shari, or many other products in India, okay, the design is known, manufacturing details are known, all these details are known.
I think Professor Roy is muted, I think. Professor Roy, you are muted.
What do you try to do in today's context? Yeah, in today's context, the situation has become very, very complex. So many things you have to know. So many things you have to know. Are you getting my point? So you need to create a knowledge base, and that support is required, like what you find in Japanese organizations. Many professors, they become a permanent, the supporting staff, or say they are the consultants, not only with respect to a particular, say the problem, is a general one. So they've been hired. Okay. So same sort of support you should get, and that is basically essentially known as 4PL. Now,
Yeah.
Professor Roy has already pointed out, so that is actually giving you support, giving you knowledge on different aspects. You're getting my point. So today's context, the entire process has become very, very complex. The product design has become very, very complex. The problem has become very, very complex. There are several dimensions. So you need to create such, the knowledge base. They will give you support permanent. So that's called 4PL. And then the 5PL also you can proceed, no problem.
Yeah.
That's
So,
my answer.
Did the person who asked the question, are you clear? The Abhik Kumar who asked the question? You can reply on the chat box. It was very nicely explained by Professor Ray. Yeah, we can. Which one? Can you repeat the question?
The question?
From? Okay, the last part of the question I couldn't hear.
Designed for No, there are many kinds of design. See,
DMA DB. Is it DMA DB? Okay, I'll respond to the question.
design for
Six Sigma. In Six Sigma, basically we talk about DMAIC, which is DMAIC. The full form of DMAIC is define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Now that we normally apply when the system we are recognizing the supply chain. We are saying yes, the supply chain does exist. It does serve a purpose, but we say that it is not fulfilling the requirement of higher value of sigma. So we calculate the capability of the process and we go ahead. That's called DMAIC, which I showed one of the example of the American Axle Manufacturing Company. Another approach which I like more and which is more applicable during the time of COVID is called DFSS, Design for Supply Chain. Another name of DFSS is DMA-DV. It is all the same. It means define, measure, analyze, design, and verify. So design element is here. Okay, so if I have understood your question correctly, you are saying whether DFSS and DMA-DV are all the same. Yes, it is all the same. Industry talks more of DFSS because they say design for supply chain. So it is all the same. Thank you for your question. And I must congratulate all the persons who are asking the question. Very good question. The first research scholar was extremely good. And you know, in such question and answer session, we will probe you further. That is why we ask you back. So it is only to understand your mind. Okay, good. Let's go for we will take a couple of more questions. We have another 4 minutes to go. Another 3 to 4 minutes. Before we request Mr. Kalipada Das, General Secretary, Honorary Secretary of WBSC IEI, to give his concluding comments and vote of thanks. So we can take 1 or 2 more questions. Okay. Would you like to ask any question on that concept of the scenario building exercise which Professor Roy said? I'm sure you have certain questions because these are not widely spoken about in the literature or in the text. The scenario building exercise, SBE, which he spoke about. Would anyone?
In view of unmuted, in view of COVID-19, am I audible?
Yeah.
Am I audible? In view of COVID-19, some of the thermal power plants, they procured these boilers and turbines from the China. That there is a restriction of the importing of the spares.
Yeah.
Can you just tell me how they will manage in the supply chain, tackle this situation? First one question. Second question is that automobile industries fully depend on the China spares, like your Maruti, that how they will tackle this situation as in COVID situation. Am I clear, sir?
Yeah, your question is very clear.
Yeah.
Your question is very clear, and you have asked one of the most.
I am S.K. Bera.
You are a professor. You are from?
I am from Indian. I am from Indian Oil, sir.
Indian
Oil.
Oil.
Yeah.
Your question is very clear. Your question is very relevant, and your question is difficult. But as a panelist, you will respond. Let me first give my response. You see, the question pertains to the national policy, the policy of the government. Government, in its own wisdom, has taken certain decisions. And certainly, those decisions are to be supported. And better to support those decisions because probably we are late, but there is no other option. Now, I would only say that if those spares we have been sourcing from China, now there could be some alternate sourcing opportunities in, I won't say immediately we can develop it in India. That's not a feasible idea. In a long term, that may be possible. But then there could be some sources, as Professor Pradeep Kumar Roy was saying, that there are certain areas like Korea, etc., which we might not have explored those, and you might be able to see those parts, sources there. Now, failing all this, then there is a problem. And then we have to see in a national level how we resolve this problem. But the decision is very correct that we should be self-reliant. I will give you an example. Your question is much more loaded. I will give an example. That time I was working with Tata Motors, and there was
I worked also in Tata Motors earlier.
Oh, is it? Okay, good.
I was in
So-
Digiplan Engineering Service
Okay, good.
in Jamshedpur works.
I was in Jamshedpur. Nice to know that. And there was a decision taken by the company board to blacklist a company. And the entire company was dependent on him. He used to supply the most critical part for the commercial vehicles which Tata used to produce. I was, at that time, the materials manager of one of the plant. So it came as a shock to us. We sat for emergency meeting. And we decided, come what may, we will find a solution. So we all went out. And in a month's time, we could discover some good alternative sources down south. So it is possible. Until we face this kind of crisis, we do not move. So, but your question is is a question of a national importance, national policy. So therefore, more than this, it's not possible for us to throw light. I would request other panelists to kindly. It's a very good question, and I'm sure you are echoing the question which is maybe there in many other people's mind. At the same time, banning of the sources from China has also given an opportunity. There are 59 startups, 59 type of companies which have been banned, and all those items it is possible to locally develop with our brilliant engineers in the country. I'm talking about the software supported startup companies. Yeah, I would request other panelists to please, this being the last question, I request other panelists to kindly throw some light.
Very good evening to all the highly esteemed panelists and my fellow attendees. Hope all of you are safe and fine. I am Siddharth Gupta calling from Jamshedpur. Am I audible?
Yes.
I am an electrical engineer by qualification and worked in the project management domain of various core sector industries for the past 12 years, sir. I want to ask a question to Professor Gautam. Presently, for the past 5 to 6 years, we are observing in various large organizations an increasing trend of outsourcing the entire supply chain system to sub-vendors. Doesn't it reduce the efficiency of the system as the organizations are gradually losing the ownership and control of their own supply chain system and also increasing the dependency on a third party? How feasible is this concept, outsourcing concept, which is being implemented by many organizations recently? Thank you.
Okay, you are currently in which organization?
I'm working for Tata Projects, sir.
Tata Projects, okay.
You see, okay, fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I would pass on this question to Professor Pradeep Kumar Roy, but before that, I will just add one line. Your question is extremely good, and you have asked a very pertinent question. You see, Professor Roy in his lecture has already touched upon this point, and I would request Mr. Kalipada Das and Pradeep Kumar Roy, who happens to be the chairman of this particular production engineering department, to hold exclusively a seminar of this type on outsourcing, because the subject is so vast and large. I cannot answer you. I can only tell you the question is extremely good. You see, on one hand, there is no substitute or no alternate of outsourcing, but an unmindful outsourcing will lead to a great trouble. What to outsource and what not to outsource. The companies have become bankrupt by wrong outsourcing. For example, the IBM is one example when they faced a huge problem of bankruptcy because of unmindful outsourcing. There is a business process, critical business process, which you have to keep in mind. And if you even outsource that part to an external agency, then you are gone. But at the same time, there are certain parts definitely you must outsource to bring down the cost and bring down the pressure of the overheads. I would request, this itself is a big subject. I think 3 hours continuously debate is required.
I want to add one point over here.
Yeah.
Like, say, we all know bill of materials. And certain fundamentals, in fact.
Yeah.
Now, when you get a bill of material, now you have to make a decision, make or buy.
Right.
And there are very good models practical models. Okay, there are many companies that have been using this. So the make or buy decision, that is the core. So obviously the outsourcing normally cannot be, a feasible alternative when outsourcing actually hits your core competency, then you are gone. What Professor Sengupta has already pointed out. Now, like in one case I found, in a particular case, I'll tell you, I don't want to name that company. They want to outsource even their maintenance function. Maintenance function, not only servicing, entire maintenance function. And then I studied all the data. Actually, all these machineries, they have become totally outdated. That means a replacement is required. Agreeing my point. So the companies, they are facing problems of maintenance because it has reached, most of the machineries have reached to the replacement level. Maintenance is not feasible. But they think, okay, as they are unable to maintain it, they go for outsourcing. And then the outsource companies, they try to, totally exploited them. So the company is in totally in a bad shape and all, and they try to exploit you. That's it. So the outsourcing in which context is a feasible alternative that must be known very clearly. Outsourcing for giving your own responsibility as if you will live a very a comfortable life, and you just asking someone to supply as if you don't want to take the responsibility. That sort of attitude comes in, then obviously the other companies will exploit you and you are gone. Okay. That is the thing. I have several
Thank you very
examples
much.
on it.
Thank you very much for this question. There are many models, there are many concepts on this. There are a lot of recent researches which has happened on make or buy. It's called make or buy and outsourcing. We will have one full program on this. So thank you for giving this suggestion. To answer your question, yes, it is risky. Yes, it is risky. IBM got into trouble because even they outsourced the design part of their computer. Okay, so that is one of the example how a global company did a mistake. Okay, so I think we have crossed the time. All the questions are extremely good. I must congratulate all the people who asked the question and some of you who could not yet ask the question. And I must congratulate all of you. So now we come to the last part of the program today, that is concluding comments and the vote of thanks. And I invite Sri Kalipada Das, Honorary Secretary, WBSE IEI. He is the energy behind all of us. And today we are here because of him. So I will request him to kindly give his concluding remarks and the vote of thanks. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Gautam Sengupta. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are.
Our respected dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. It is my proud privilege and at the same time a great pleasure to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to all the distinguished panelists as well as the participants to join with us today's webinar on the theme Post-COVID-19 Supply Chain Collapse, Challenges and Solutions, organized by our Production Engineering Division of West Bengal State Center through online platform as a part of our centenary technical webinar series organized by our headquarter, the Institution of Engineers. At the outset, I convey my sincere thanks to all the panelists, Professor Pradeep Kumar Rai, Dean of Vinod Gupta School of Management and of Department of Industrial and System Engineering, IIT Kharagpur, who is also the chairman of our Production Engineering Division of West Bengal State Center, Professor Dr. Gautam Kumar Sengupta, who is the eminent engineer of West Bengal State Center Committee and also the Vice Chancellor of Techno India University, West Bengal, who is also the moderator of today's program. My sincere thanks also goes to Dr. S.N. Roy, who is the former Director of Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management, in short IIS WBM, who have very nicely deliberated the lectures on the challenges, mainly the challenges and opportunities, solutions for COVID-19 supply chain collapse. My sincere thanks also goes to my colleague, Sri Sandip Kumar Dev, the chairman, who could not make it possible for some exigency work today. Thanks also goes to Professor Bijan Kumar Sarkar, who is a professor, Department of Production Engineering, Jadavpur University, and also the convener of our Production Engineering Division Subcommittee, West Bengal State Center Institution of Engineer. I convey my sincere thanks to all my members of the council, all the members of the committee of West Bengal State Center, the directors, technical and his team for their wholehearted support to make the program a grand success. I also feel myself too much delighted to pass on my sincere thanks to National Steel Development Forum of IEI, mainly its chairman, Mr. Joshi, and his team, who has given our reluctant support to make the program a grand success. You know, when we are arranging such a seminar, we require some help from the office, and all credits goes to our staff of West Bengal State Center, who has coordinated all the participants, also coordinated with the headquarters for make the program a grand success. Last but not the least, I also wish to shower my heartfelt thanks to all who are behind the screen to make this today's technical webinar a grand success. Thank you all. Under announcement to all the participants who have asked for the certificates, I request all of them, the certificates will be available within next 5 working days of Institution of Engineers. Thanks to all for present today's webinar and to make it a grand success. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Jai Hind. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
With the permission of the moderator and the chairman of Production Engineering Division, may I now request NSDF to close the program?
Yeah, I think so. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your support.
It's I feel honored when you are arranging such seminars. I am there to help you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
We
you.
must